Hello my friends, and welcome back to Meerkat Musings. I'm your host Ben, with a video this afternoon which talks a bit about the Fandom Menace. The Fandom Menace being in this particular instance, a bunch of Star Wars fans who have taken it upon themselves to police the fandom, for lack of a better term, and basically they are trying to, shall we say, divide and manipulate the Star Wars fandom as to what should be considered true Star Wars. And that, of course, carries with it the not-so-subtle implication as to who is really a fan of Star Wars. This actually relates to some stuff which erupted back when Star Trek Discovery first aired. A lot of what's happening now with the Star Wars show, The Acolyte, happened when Discovery first came around, all the way back in 2017. And it seems that sci-fi fandoms, once again, haven't learned. This stuff also sort of went on a little bit with Doctor Who at one point as well, and still is. And it's still going on with Star Trek, and it's going on now with Star Wars. Although, to be fair, I think it's also happened with Star Wars before as well. There seems to be a recurring thing that some fans take it upon themselves to be the final judges as to what is or is not a canon part of any given story. And they take it upon themselves to therefore determine, in, as I say, a not so subtle way, who isn't and is really a fan of any given franchise. To offer up an example of this, if you, in your rather arrogant belief, declare any particular Star Wars show to be true Star Wars, and you declare something else to not be true Star Wars, the obvious implication of that is that you're saying any fans of this show you deem not to be worthy are not true Star Wars fans. They're only true Star Wars fans if they're fans of true Star Wars. This is the mentality that's basically erupting right now, and I've seen exactly the same rhetoric on display with the Star Trek fandom. The bottom line is, if you are a fan of the Star Wars show The Acolyte, you are a fan of Star Wars. You don't need to jump through hoops to justify this. The fans who are jumping up and down about the show breaking canon and that kind of thing are being incredibly nitpicky. They are hung up on details that George Lucas himself would probably have overridden, as he was wont to do more than once. And the bottom line is as well, some of the details that they're getting so hung up on were altered anyway when Disney purchased the franchise. When Disney bought Star Wars, they basically turned the expanded universe from being an official continuation of the story into what was now regarded as the Legends Star Wars material, which now sits outside of the official continuity of Star Wars. Disney made that change, and so the fans who are saying, well, this material from 2003 says blah 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 about a character, it doesn't count anymore. Okay, and let's not forget that material could all be overridden on a whim if at the time George Lucas decided to do something. He didn't, ultimately what he did was sell the franchise to Disney. But if he had wanted to, at any point he could have done anything he wanted with any of the characters in any way, shape or form, and that would become the new Star Wars canon, and it would override anything that he wanted. But as I say, some fans are getting tied up in knots over minuet stuff, and they're also getting very petty and very aggressive and very nasty about things like this as well. Some of these gatekeeping fans, and not all of them, I do want to stress not all of them, but some of them are also being, they are decrying the alleged wokeness of the show, and some of them did this with Star Trek Discovery. Some of them have done this with Doctor Who. They are upset that it's got a diverse cast, and for some reason, this for some reason is intolerable to them. The show is set in a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago, in a universe populated by a huge variety of alien beings, and they are upset that there aren't enough, seemingly there aren't enough white men on the screen for their liking. What do they think that a galaxy of different alien beings would look like? Do they think they'd all be white men? It's not like Star Wars is lacking in representation in that area. I mean, you only look at, episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 to see a lot of representation in that area. And it exists elsewhere in Star Wars as well. But for some reason, there is this incredible anxiety among these gatekeeping fans whenever anyone who's not a white man gets more representation in Star Wars than they've had before. And that is, that's a different form of complaint, but there is an overlap between these gatekeeping fans who scream about canon and about true Star Wars and this, that and the other, and the fans who decry the show for being apparently too woke and too politically correct. I'm not saying, as I say, every gatekeeping fan is one of these people getting stressed about this, but there is an overlap, as we saw, of course, as well with other franchises. The bottom line is, no one needs to justify to anyone else why they're a fan of something. If you become a Star Wars fan because of The Acolyte, more power to you. I actually personally am a little bit on the fence with the show, It's not so far been my favourite Star Wars. I mean, it is interesting to kind of go back to a period shortly before the events of the Phantom Menace. I mean, we're peeling back the curtain a little bit in terms of how the Sith perhaps begin to climb back into significance. But so far, I think the show has been a little bit slow, and it feels like it's taken a while for them to get anywhere story-wise and plot-wise. But that doesn't mean I haven't enjoyed it. I just think it feels very quiet, I guess. I mean, this is the Star Wars universe, and you kind of feel that it should be a bit, I don't know, snappier, peppier, quicker, but it just feels a bit stilted at the moment to me. And to me personally, only speaking personally here, I've been a little bit underwhelmed by some of the acting performances as well. I haven't really been, I guess, sold on some of that as such. But those are purely my opinions. I don't expect people to agree with them. Some people might, some people won't. That's fine. And if you don't agree with me, this doesn't mean I don't think you're a fan of Star Wars. I wouldn't ever presume to make such an arrogant judgment. But unfortunately, those people who style themselves as the Fandom Menace, they are very fond of making arrogant judgments and of, presuming it's their way or the highway to a certain degree. And what's also strange about this is these people who are rabidly criticising these shows still watch them quite religiously. If they were really not enjoying them, if they hate these things so much, then the question becomes, as it always does, why are you watching them? If I don't like something, I don't tend to watch it. I mean, that just strikes me as being simple common sense. If you're not a fan of something, then you switch it off. But for whatever given reason, there are people out there who they sort of obsess They obsess over things that they hate. And I don't understand that. I don't think I'll ever understand that. In summary, Star Wars is for everyone. You don't have to justify why you like a show. You don't have to justify why you dislike a show, necessarily. You are a fan if you consider yourself to be a fan. And no one gets to decide for you what is true Star Wars. And if we're talking about that in a philosophical sense, no one chooses that for you. If we're talking about it in I think legal sense is the wrong word. If we're talking about it in an official sense, then the powers that own these franchises are the ones who decide what is, officially part of the story, what's canon, that kind of thing. And if they regard the Acolyte as being canon, so be it. If you feel it breaks canon, well, that's up to you, but a lot of the complaints thus far have been exceptionally nitpicky. But we've seen this before, and it just descends into people howling into the void and failing to distinguish themselves in any way, shape or form. If you like something, enjoy it. If you don't like it, well, you haven't got to justify why you don't like it. But if you really, really, really don't like it, maybe get off your high horse about gatekeeping, just don't watch it. It's as simple as that. The franchise is not dying just because it doesn't fit your personal philosophy.